All right, what's up, YouTube? We are live. The Globe says, greetings and thanks for making this all so much more understandable. Been trying to figure out Tantra and Montauk Chia for literal decades. Yeah, that was really, a big part of my goal when I started sharing this information, is that I spent many years studying this work, through Montauk Chia, through Michael Wynn, through some other teachers I'd studied with. And it can be difficult in the beginning to sort through the information, really understand the practices and make it practical for, us living modern lives. And so that was a big goal of in sharing sexual kung fu was how to present this information in a understandable and practical way. So I'm glad that you found that as well. Welcome everyone. Good to see you guys. It's been a couple weeks and it's been quite a month. Been a very busy time for me. It's been a lot of fun. It's been an amazing summer, and I'm just about to kick off my men's retreat this Sunday here in Asheville. Got a solid group of guys signed up, and we're gonna spend 5 days going absolutely deep into the practices, deep into self-cultivation, cultivating our chi, learning to work with our sexual energy, all the dynamics of the practice. So super excited for that. What else? Got some other busy things going on this month, but it's been good. So today I want to share a little bit about the polarity or the dynamics of sexual polarity. This is an important thing to understand, not just for your own internal body mind, we could say, but your relationship to others as well. All sexual attraction is based on polarity, and orgasm itself, the experience of orgasm, is this polarity dynamic. It's this buildup of polarities, this this dance of polarities, forces intermingling and pulsating together. and know that polarity is something you experience both within your own body, this yin yang dynamic. When we talk about polarity, it's this yin yang dynamic, masculine, feminine, but we all have these aspects within ourselves. Everyone has this to some extent, masculine, feminine energies. And of course, in our relationships as well, this is a very apparent dynamic as well. And so it's important to be aware of this, as the tendency is in our relationships, things seem very exciting in the beginning. And then over time, it starts to dry up. We lose the passion, we lose the fire, and we're not sure why that is, right? So understanding how polarity fits into this and what is driving this attraction, sexual desire, and orgasm itself as well is very important. So first of all, talking about this internal sexual polarity dynamic, I think this is something a lot of people aren't really aware of, is that we have this, men especially. Men always ask me, why is it so hard for me to get into like this state of non-ejaculatory orgasm or full body orgasm when I'm not with a partner, like just cultivating myself? And I think a big part of that is because the water element is missing there, the feeling sense, the love, or rather the heart, the fire element, that loving, radiant connection. Because when you're with a partner, there's often this, there's an obvious combustion of elements there. You're exchanging your energy with your partner. These yin yang forces are meeting, water and fire are meeting, and it's very juicy. It's very volatile and explosive. But to be able to create the same dynamic within your own body, right? And for men, this is for everyone actually, it's a heart. It's a fire water connection internally, which is the heart. The heart's the fire element, the loving, radiant energy of the heart. But then there's the water element within the body, which is the kidney system, the water element in the kidney system in Chinese medicine, which includes the genitals, the reproductive organs. So this is the sexual desire, the raw passion, the water element, the desire to reproduce and feel, to be embodied, right? And for men, this element, as far as sexually, is often our sole focus in the sexual experience, is just pure physical sensation, pure lust energy, just desire to look at a body, to the very visual aspects of sex, just the purely kind of animalistic expression of it. And the heart element is often missing there. This is the fire that cooks the water and raises it, creates the steam to rise it through the body. And so this feeling of love, of radiance, of self-love, being able to connect your loving energy with your heart, with that passionate sexual desire of your genitals, it changes the quality of that sexual energy. It turns it from being just this kind of raw, heavy, lustful energy to being this light energy. When you mix the heart energy with the sexual energy, it changes the form of it. It makes it lighter. Now that energy wants to move upward in the body, whereas, for most men, it only can be expelled outwards. So that's kind of the inner dynamic, the inner yin yang dynamic and polarity is connecting this heart center with your genital center. And it's as simple as breathing between. I've been doing this practice a lot recently. I've done a lot of trainings this week, and I've been bringing this practice in every time because I'm seeing how important it is to have this connection between your sexual center, the water, and the fire and the heart. So a simple way to do this is to simply breathe between these centers. We can all try this right now. So you can place a hand on your sexual center if that's appropriate, wherever you're at. You don't have to do this, but you can place another hand on your heart. And as you inhale, move your awareness from your sexual center up to the heart. As you inhale, think of like drawing up the water into the heart, the center of your chest, the heart center. And as you exhale, move the fire from the heart, that loving, radiant energy down into your sexual center. Feel them mix and combine. So you inhale the sexual energy up into the heart. Exhale the heart energy down into the sexual center. As you inhale, feel that pure sexual desire and drive. And as you exhale, feel the radiant, loving, that beautiful love energy of the heart. Feel that move into the genitals, warm it up. So practice this every day, and it will start to create this connection between these two energy centers. You can do this during sex as well. This will help men get into a more embodied state of pleasure, a more full body state. That's not just this genital focused animalistic experience of sex. And then on the level of relationships, now this is your internal relationship, this yin yang dynamic within yourself. But there's the yin yang dynamic within our relationships as well. And I think this is something that, has been very, very confusing for a lot of people in this day and age, because as how to put this, just in that, there's a lot of mixed feelings about masculinity, toxic masculinity, femininity, whatever. There's this huge battle of the sexes, right? Basically. And but on a purely relationship level, if you want to experience strong passion, if you strong, fiery romance, love, connection, intensity, there has to be strong polarity in the relationship. And what often happens, again, as I was saying a bit ago, whereas initially in the relationship, there's this strong polarity. It's it's someone new. There's this whole new dynamic. And then when you've been together for a while, you go out of that honeymoon excitement phase, and you get into the crisis therapy stage where you're fighting all the time. There's just no more passion. And this is often because polarity has changed or has been minimized in some way. For men, the common pattern that I've seen, just that I've, had myself, and I see in a lot of other men as well, is getting into this kind of expectancy, like, okay, well, we're in this relationship, I'm paying the bills, I'm supporting her, she should just be willing to have sex with me 24/7. And they lose the ability, they forget how to seduce their partner, how to create excitement, to create uncertainty, the apprehension, and it just becomes an unconscious thing, an unconscious pattern where you're doing the same thing every time. Like, okay, hey, you want to have sex? Come on, you should have sex with me. You owe, whatever. And so remembering to create unpredictability, excitement, create time where you can really connect with your partner, give them your awareness. Don't just go straight into trying to jump into sex, but creating some interest, having deep conversations, subtle touch of the body, giving them a massage, and just allowing that dynamic, that desire to build. And that's a great way, to rebuild that passion, creating more polarity. And men, it's important to be in your masculine, to be strong in who you are. It's not to be a people pleaser, but to be your true authentic self, not be afraid of what others think of you, and to be that strong supportive role. The feminine needs a strong foundation, a strong kind of leader for her, so that she can surrender into her feminine nature, let go, and be guided by you. So, again, relationship, both within yourself and your relationship with others. It's based on polarity. So being able to keep that polarity alive and strong over a period of time is a skill within itself, and it requires constant cultivation. And I did a video recently called "How to Fix a Sexless Relationship" because it does become a common pattern for a lot of people. And so the relationship itself requires cultivation, requires you noticing if you're getting into this like mommy daddy dynamic in your relationships. Are you treating your spouse like your mother, your father, or whatever? And are you losing those qualities that make you an attractive partner? Are you losing your strong masculine charge or your feminine dynamic, whatever it is? Being aware of this and strengthening these things over time will really enhance your relationship and also your sexual experience as well, because sex is the same thing, this yin yang dynamic. Someone's on a more active role, someone is more submissive and receptive, and it may change throughout the time period, the session. But as a man, being able to hold a strong state of discipline, of self-control, not just trying to like take something or manipulate your partner to trying to have sex with you, but truly creating a space of safety, of love and support, and being in control of your sexual energy, not just using sex as a way to release your own stress and your own issues, but to truly deeply connect with your heart with someone. And that is a whole new experience of sexuality. So with that, I'm going to answer some questions now. I see there's some questions in the chat, so feel free to post your questions and I'll answer them as much as I'm able to. Thanks everyone for joining. Always good to hang out with you guys. Okay. DeAndre Jones 323 says, "What if reverse Kegels give me erectile dysfunction?" So there could be many reasons for this. Most likely, and maybe this isn't it at all, but what I sense is the case often is that when a man is used to using a Kegel, a squeezing of the pelvic floor to hold his erection. I had this pattern for years because I learned, most of my teachers told me, yes, you should, do tons of Kegels, strengthen the pelvic floor, hold those pelvic floor contractions throughout sex to prevent ejaculating, and it will also increase the hardness of your erection and everything. So I was doing that for years. And then I was starting to realize how much tension I was, building up in my pelvic floor. All this involuntary squeezing during sex that was making my penis a lot more sensitive. And when I was transitioning into the relaxation methods, which I'm now using in teaching to keep the pelvic floor relaxed, completely relaxed during sex, I noticed in the beginning it was harder for me to, my erections weren't as good, basically. And it's because when you're if you have to hold a Kegel to hold your erection, it means that your pelvic floor has some serious imbalances in it. That's what it was for me. Basically, what happens here is there's a constriction of blood flow, all this tension in your pelvic floor. To squeeze a muscle, to hold a muscle in tension requires blood, it pulls the blood into there. And so when you have all these tension patterns in your pelvic floor, it's pulling a lot of the blood, the local blood into that area. And it's also preventing proper circulation from happening. So it takes a bit of time. The penis is meant to be fully erect when you're completely relaxed, no squeezing necessary, right? Because it's a circulation that holds the penis erect, good circulation into and out of the penis. A Kegling, squeezing, it initially gives you a harder erection because it pumps a bit of blood in there and then it holds it in there, but it cuts off the circulation. So over time, your erections become worse and worse. Your penis becomes very sensitive, premature ejaculation, weak erections. So correcting the imbalances in the pelvic floor is very important. You will have much better erections in the long run. There can be a bit of a rehabilitation period, maybe a few weeks, maybe several months, depends. But yeah, rehabilitating the pelvic floor, releasing the tension patterns, and being able to hold that completely relaxed, you'll have much better erections if your hormones are in balance, if everything's good. And as far as reverse Kegels, yeah, so maybe this relates to that, in that reverse Kegels um, relax the pelvic floor. So this may be part of what's going on, but also you may be doing the reverse Kegel too hard. You don't want to do like a really hard push with reverse Kegling during sex. And again, if you're doing it too excessively, it can create tension, and it has the same effect of blocking blood flow. So there's a lot to this. Hopefully that shared some insight on that. Okay. L Jordan 369 says, is there any kind of meditation you recommend to control sexual energy, especially when you feel the urge to masturbate? Yes. A good practice to do is work with the microcosmic orbit. This is old news to a lot of you watching probably, but the microcosmic orbit, this energy meridian runs up the back of the body, from the perineum up the spine, over the crown of the head. You place the tongue against the roof of the mouth, connects to the front channel, flows down the front of the body. Circuit. I have several guided videos on my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, Sexual Kung Fu, Microcosmic Orbit. This is the practice that you want to do because it circulates your sexual energy through it. This is the problem for men, is that when this sexual energy builds up in the genitals, it creates more desire, and it strengthens the lower energy centers, more sexual desire, more thirst for power, more ego, right? And it's okay if it's in balance, right? But when it builds and builds, there's nowhere else for it to go because you haven't opened up your body to contain this higher energy you're building. It wants to be ejaculated out. When you work with a microcosmic orbit, you open up a new pathway, a new possibility for this energy to be expressed in, other than ejaculation. Now you circulate it up the spine using your intention, circulate the energy, it changes the form of it. And so that's my number one recommendation. There's also a practice called testicle breathing on my YouTube channel, which shows you how to circulate your sexual energy through that. So work with the microcosmic orbit first, then start adding in the sexual energy. Use that practice when you feel intense sexual desire, and it will circulate that energy through your body. And it's also important that you have other things to put this energy into. I always recommend that men who are doing this work have some sort of creative outlet. For me, it's music. I love to play music, create music. For you, whatever, art, music, building things, whatever it is, put this energy into something else. That's the thing, is you need hobbies, you need outlets for this energy. If you're just sitting at home building up energy, it's going to make you weird, Okay, Viguez, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. He's asking, did you find a partner that was already on a similar path, or did you guide and teach her? My partner Mariah, I would say we were on similar paths in a lot of ways, in that we were into kind of personal empowerment, self-development. She was not exactly on the same path of like qigong and meditation, but after we met, she really opened up to, she opened me up into business and like becoming self-employed, and I opened her up into the world of internal energy practices. So she started, beginning her own practice, kind of inspired by, what I was obviously kind of embodying for my practice. And that led her into, her own practice of working with sexual energy and everything. And now we cultivate together. So that's how that worked out. Okay, here's a question. Nasify is asking, thoughts on semen retention versus self-pleasing imbalance. Okay, so basically, I think the question here is like retaining for a period of time and then maybe allowing yourself to ejaculate through self-stimulation. It's a great starting point for sure. And as far as the frequency of how often you can ejaculate, it is determined by your age, your health. Kind of the classical Taoist guidelines are, if you're in your 20s, you go at least, I would say now more like once a week for the average man in this world, because men are more depleted than ever. So if you're in your 20s, no more than once a week. If you're in your 30s, no more than every 2 weeks. 40s, 3 weeks. Beyond that, you probably shouldn't be ejaculating through masturbation. But there's also the sexual kung fu thing, where is you learn to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. So sexual pleasure, whether it's by yourself or with a partner, actually becomes a way to stimulate and build a sexual charge, store it within the body. And then you can, if you really want to, masturbate as often as you want and not ejaculate, and you get kind of the highest benefits. So it's really just, goals, what your intentions and what your daily practice is like. Danny P says, "What do you think about the Angion method? Do you recommend it?" I talk about this a lot. Uh, I think the Angion method is great. This is a system that this guy developed. Basically, cardiovascular exercises for the penis, the blood vessels of the penis. It develops the blood vessels. It over time boosts your erection. It's basically like bodybuilding for your penis, and it's the only like there's a lot of like penis exercises like jelqing and stretching that are extremely dangerous. You can make yourself impotent. You can completely destroy your penis doing those things. But Angion method is pretty safe and it's effective. It's not like a quick fix, but over time you work with it and it develops your vascular system in your penis. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. Mr. Julian 1154 says, "I went through a rough breakup last year, literally broken heart. I feel that my heart center feels kind of numb and I have issues connecting to it and feeling things in my heart. Any advice for me to fix it?" This is very common. We, especially for men, we're in a state where we're open, we're putting ourselves out there, we're allowing our heart to be open to give and receive, and then we get hurt. And the tendency is for us to put walls around our heart and protect ourselves. Say, okay, I'm never doing that again. I'm not going to feel anything anymore. I'm just going to have this wall around my heart. Why is the most common cause of death for men heart attacks, heart issues, heart disease? Um, because we carry a lot of this stuck unresolved energy in our heart and we don't want to express it. So yeah, it's important to allow this to flow, to be able to allow yourself to feel and to get things moving. As far as opening the heart, I mean, just in general, I think qigong is a really amazing exercise. Just as it circulates energy through your body and can help to kind of wear these things down and get back into just being able to feel open and feeling again. So I definitely recommend doing qigong, but also just connecting with the space of your heart. So we'll do a quick practice. We'll do a quick little heart connection here because this is important. So just place your hand on your heart and feel like you're dropping backward, like you're leaning backwards, falling over backwards, just to kind of in your mind, falling down from your head into the space of your heart. And you're just floating on this pink cloud there. You really feel into this area and just do your best to create feelings of love, of joy, of radiance. Think back on a memory, a time when you did feel this, and use that to support this creation of this feeling. And just make that as strong as you can, feeling gratitude, whatever, these heart quality energies. And feel that radiance spread through your heart center, the front, but also the back. The back is very important as well. The back, most people can't feel the back of their heart. We hold a lot back here. So just feel this whole area, smile to it, put a smile on your face, smile internally, feel, and just allow yourself to feel whatever it is. You can like imagine your heart's opening, like there's this like bursting open like a flower in this area, front and back. But yeah, that type of practice is helpful, and just allowing yourself to feel over time again. I hope that's helpful. Nasify says, "Love the high tech necklace you got on, man. Heard those got a lot of great benefits." Yeah, this is well, it's ancient Egyptian tech actually, but Arcturus Ra makes these. The is it the Rocky? Yeah, the Jed. Pure Presence says, "When you say Kegels can tighten the pelvic floor, does this mean you also advise against SQ?" I'm not sure what that is. SQ. Maybe meant to type squats. I'll just assume that you were typing squats. Squats are great because this is the whole thing with Kegels is that it's over isolating. And because most men already have a lot of tension in this pelvic floor area because too much time sitting, tension, nervous system tension, which creates tension here as well. When you do Kegels on top of that, you're just adding to the problem. And Kegels tend to overly isolate just a few of the pelvic floor muscles, which is a very complex muscle system. It connects to all the surrounding areas. Whereas if you're going to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles, I recommend doing um, exercises like squats. Will strengthen your pelvic floor in a more holistic way at all the surrounding muscle groups rather than just isolating. So it's a better exercise for that. I'm not sure if that's what you were typing in, but yeah. Justin James 108 says, "What books do you recommend on tantric practices?" One of my favorite books is Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy by Matak Chia and Michael Wynn. Really great book as far as the just overall theory. The exercises are very tension based, and I don't recommend kind of some of the ways they like the exercises have you do the practices. I do different versions now, but that's a great book overall. Tantric practices. I'm trying to think here. There's a book called what is it called? I think it's Tantric Orgasm for Women or Female Tantric Orgasm by Diane Richardson or is it Richards? I forget her exact name, but that's a really great. It's for women, but it's very applicable for men as well. Just a different kind of understanding of sex and orgasm and being less goal oriented in sex. What else? Tantric practice books. What is it? Jewel. I think it's called Jewel in the Lotus. Is a book that teaches some tantric practices. Okay, Oscar Gothland says, "Is there a way for a man to cultivate huge amount of pleasure on his own without being in need of a partner?" Yes, definitely. Um, it's often more difficult for men to do this because, again, kind of what I was mentioning towards the beginning of this, in that whereas men, when men are masturbating, when they're just in touch with their own body, there's typically not much of an emphasis on heart energy. And it's usually very like lustful, thinking of visual imagery, and that sort of thing. And so it creates this, it's often more of a lust based experience. And so what can help you get into a more of a lightness, more of a full body experience is to bring the heart into it. Doing the practice we were doing earlier, the breathing between the genitals and the heart, but also feeling love, feeling self-love, love for yourself, uh, feelings of love for the universe, for life in general, and really getting into that type of vibrational state. And so I think that will help you get into more of this internal yin yang dynamic versus just lustful type of energy alone. And something else though for men is prostate orgasms. I made a video of this on YouTube, a couple videos on this. Basically, having orgasms from prostate stimulation alone, and not like aggressive prostate stimulation. Simply being aware of that part of the body, uh, breathing into it, using certain pelvic floor engagements, you can have massively, massively powerful orgasms, intense, insane, like kundalini out of body, one with the universe, beyond any like drug or psychedelic type of orgasm experiences from the prostate orgasm. It's phenomenal. To learn more about that, you can look up prostate super O, or you can go on my YouTube channel, look up sexual kung fu prostate orgasm. But yeah, men can cultivate tremendous pleasure on their own. Pure Presence says, when you say doing Kegels can tighten the pelvic floor, does that mean you also advise against squeezing the butt muscles as in the big draw, or do you advise learning to separate Kegels from that? Um, the glute muscles are better to work with if you're going to squeeze something. If you can isolate them from the pelvic floor, I mean, I learned a technique of basically using the glutes for the equivalent of what a lot of the kind of modern teachers say. They say squeeze the pelvic floor muscle, the perineum, the PC muscle, whatever. I replaced that with just a slight gluteal, kind of like think of squeezing the glutes against the tailbone to kind of create this feeling of suction up the spine. So you can do that. Definitely just leave out the pelvic floor engagement if you're doing like the big drop type practice. But eventually, I recommend leaving out all tension and just using the mind and maybe some breath. I teach these types of practices in my course because it's using a lot of force. Here's the thing: for men, our sexual energy is very fiery. It's very volatile as it is, and when you're using these like strong muscular like shoving the energy up, my experience with this has been that it tends to get stuck in the upper regions of the body because you're just forcing it up. So you really want to learn to use a bit more effortlessness. Just allow the energy to rise. Just by encouraging it with your mind, you learn to circulate. Getting really good at the testicle breathing, the orgasmic breathing, without any flexing, any tension, and that creates a very effortless way of drawing energy through the body. And then you only use the kind of squeezing if you really need to, like if you're really on the edge and need to, you know, pull some energy out of there. That's kind of how my practice has evolved, where it's just become very effortless, more about just relaxation and this is why I think qigong is a very valuable thing to practice, even going really deep into the energy arts cultivation, because you learn to really move some qi without needing any sort of like muscular tension or anything like that, just using the mind, and you get pretty good at this. Danny P says, do you follow Taoism as philosophy or belief system? Um, definitely. I mean, a bit of both. It's I have some beliefs that are rooted in Taoism, but I don't like to get stuck into like religious dogma or rigid belief systems. So it's definitely a philosophy. To me, out of all the kind of mainstream, I wouldn't say Taoism is a religion, though. There is religious sects of Taoism, but it's mostly been just kind of a philosophical, spiritual path. The wandering Taoist, that's kind of the flavor I vibe with. But yeah, I very much resonate with a lot of the teachings of Taoism. I mean, even within Taoism, there's very different schools of thought. There was the kind of the Lao Tzu, the wandering Taoist, the Chuangzi, then kind of the complete reality school, the more like where they started integrating Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, and everything just kind of become mixed. So there's a lot to it. But yeah, overall, I think that just like for me in my journey, I find that the teachings of Taoism to be a lot more grounded and holistic, as how do we create a very blissful experience, a very blissful life? How do we bring heaven into earth? And because they consider earth to be another heaven realm, a lot of religious paths, it's like, you have to get out of here. This is hell. You did something wrong. You fucked up. So you had to incarnate into this horrible place. And, they spend their time just trying to get out of the body. Whereas Taoism's like, how do you get more into your body? How do you bring source? How do you bring the source that you came from, this massive, powerful, yuan, qi, yuan, shen, unconditioned oneness energy? How do you bring that into this physical vessel to just have this direct connection to source and be an absolute bliss and state of like spiritual orgasm 24/7? That's kind of more what I'm interested in. Danny P says, I know I need to chill because I'm always stressed and anxious. LOL, where can I learn more, master? Um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the world are pretty stressed and anxious right now. Get out in nature, turn off the news, read some books, read the ancient texts, read some, whatever, do meditation, do breath work, play, connect to the trees, connect to the elements, do cool, fun things that connect you with the here and now that aren't, instant gratification things. Learn to create. Create your own reality of joy and bliss and play. Don't wait for someone else to, make it for you. No government or religious institution is going to be doing this for you. You have to create this reality you want for yourself, and it takes practice for sure. Zeke the Geek says, do you think it's normal to like the smell of a yoni that's pungent and ripe? I feel like the topic of how a yoni should smell is taboo, and most women think it should have no smell. Yeah, I mean, all of them, we all exude fragrances from our bodies. We, produce pheromones and various places of the bodies, and definitely the yoni is it's the flower of the female body. Men certainly produce their own smells as well. So I think it's scent is a huge thing. Whether we realize it or not, the pheromones we release are an actual powerful driver of attraction as well. When a man is high in testosterone, high in uh, I'm forgetting off the top of my mind the pheromone that men exude, but when they're high in these vital, basically when you have a lot of vitality, you put off these pheromones, and it's scent. Whether you realize or not, you're directly having the smell, but it's a powerful stimulator of attraction and desire as well. And that's one of the things of like all these chemical, scented products people wear. It covers up their natural scent. I mean, I was was working out at my gym a couple months ago, and I was, someone came over and just informed me that I was exuding a certain ripeness, so I had to, put on a little more natural deodorant before going back to the gym. It's not for everyone. French 333 says, "How do you work on our pelvic floor?" Go to my YouTube channel, Sexual Kung Fu, and look up my recent pelvic floor videos. One is pelvic floor rehab. Another one is, I think it's top 4 exercises for pelvic floor. Go through those and do reverse Kegels. And over time, it will really balance out your pelvic floor. I also have a training on my website called Awakening the Sexual Center. If your pelvic floor is really, really off whack, really struggle with premature ejaculation tension down there, that's a more comprehensive kind of routine to really balance out the pelvic floor that was really helpful for me. David Lex says, "I found mindful masturbation to be completely transformative. Do you have any thoughts on building on this practice to A, increase self-understanding, and B, in becoming a better lover?" Yeah, I mean, this is the whole, kind of one of the approaches of sexual kung fu is that you train by yourself through self-cultivation, self-stimulation. You learn how to move the energy through your body. You learn how to relax and focus your mind in what's happening within your body, not going off into fantasy and, visual only stimulation. And so getting to know your own arousal level, knowing how to kind of manage, what builds you up to ejaculation and what allows you to kind of be at more of a plateau, more of the valley orgasm state. So it's a way for you to, connect with your body. And, as far as self-understanding, I mean, yeah, it gives you a lot of understanding of how your body and its arousal systems work and kind of what is going to push you over the edge into ejaculation, what helps you maintain. And overall, this makes you a better lover naturally because you get to know your own body deeply. So number one, you can have a lot more endurance, so you can allow your partner to build up to an orgasm as well. But you also know, you get, by understanding your own body, you understand other people's bodies better as well. And you can start to read their body as well. Derek Trevino says, "Going back to the Angion method question that was asked, just curious, do you utilize the wheel or just do all the exercises with your hand? And do you think the caloric surplus is really needed as recommended?" So these are kind of technical questions about Angion method. So just my experience with this, no, I don't do the wheel exercises. The hand exercises have been plenty for me. And as far as caloric surplus being needed, I'm not 100% sure on this. I follow Janice, the guy who created the system. I follow his advice just because he's the scientist nerd doing all the research, and I've been in a calorie deficit for I've been cutting body fat for several months, and so I'm in a calorie deficit. So I haven't been doing like the ones he recommends not doing on a deficit. The Sabre method and the whatever else. So I'm not exactly sure. Okay, Kuya OSC says breast. Freudian slip there. Best practice for kidney energy. The best practice for kidney energy is to have no practice, to have stillness, to have rest. That's the best thing for your kidney energy, your water element. What does water do? It flows. It flows for a while and then it just kind of builds up in a reservoir. It likes to build and settle and build, settle and build. You must allow your energy to settle and build. And this is not really something you can force for sure. So number one is doing nothing, actually sitting on the grass under a tree, just being there. Try to do that for 30 minutes a day. It's not easy if you're used to being a very young type as I am. And so that's number one, rest, stillness. But Qigong is also great for the kidneys as well. Zhan Zhuang, holding your standing meditation, kidney one's on the ground, earth chi's pumping up as you sink into the earth. It naturally allows that earth chi to come up and pump up your kidneys. There's also kidney qigong forms, specifically for building the kidney energy. Kind of work with the kidney meridian. I teach one in my multi-orgasmic man course. You can just you can also Google kidney qigong. I'm sure tons will come up. Taking tonifying herbs, kidney yin tonifying herbs are great. And again, getting enough sleep, getting healthy amount of exercise, not over exercising. That can, again, hurt your kidney energy. But getting your blood moving is important. Sleeping, healthy diet, avoid EMF, avoid stress, get out in nature. That will help build your kidney chi back up. Okay, Oilid, I'm sorry, I do not speak French, so I can't really comment on your comments. You've been very proactive in this conversation. Toizut says, seems like you gained muscle mass. I've been hitting the gym, getting those gains. I've been doing a lot of body weight workouts actually in the past couple of months since I've been traveling, been on the road a lot. I just got into the gym for the first time in 2 months this week, but I've been doing I bought a resistance band set, some push-up bars and pull-up bars. That's all you need. It's actually been a lot better for my body overall. The weightlifting, I love weightlifting, but it's very isolating and it's not really good for whole body integration. It can really easily lead to injuries over time. So I'm finding. Krish IV says, I've experienced the mind prostate orgasm recently. Should I focus on practicing this? If so, how often? How can the feeling be extended? As far as, it's up to you if you want to focus on practicing. If you enjoy it, do it. If it's a goal of yours, go for it. As far as how often, though, I would recommend no more than once every other day. Probably take a couple of days off between sessions just to allow your, I'm not sure exactly what practices you're doing, but yeah, I would say take a day or two off to kind of integrate between that. As far as extending the feeling, it's check out my YouTube video on the prostate orgasm on YouTube. I kind of go more into it in depth there. There's a little bit to it. It's an interesting thing because it's all mind. It's all having strong arousal, relaxation, and a little bit of pelvic floor engagement as well helps to really build that prostate orgasm. It's an interesting thing. It's completely internal. Brandon Close says, 11 days into semen retention. Any advice to help with growing pain down there? Already working out, meditation, and yoga. Not really a fan of Qigong, though. So number one is pelvic floor opening exercises. Doing deep squats, holding a deep squat, breathing, stretching, opening the pelvic floor area. And reverse Kegels is extremely important. But the most really only sustainable thing to really get the most out of your practice and not just turn into an incredibly horny, angry maniac is to draw the sexual energy through the body, through the sexual kung fu practices. So go to my YouTube, check out testicle breathing, working with the microcosmic orbit as well. I have videos on that. That is essential for doing semen retention to avoid this stagnance in the genitals. which brings me to this question, which is it's fitting. I am Xavier says, does semen retention ever plateau? Like an energy gets stuck in a certain area of the body? Yes, definitely. And it gets stuck in the genitals, usually for men. So here's the thing about, I will say, kind of unskilled semen retention. You're just, okay, I'm just not going to ejaculate. That's it. I'm just going to build up this energy. More energy is not always better. You want balanced energy. You want harmonious energy. You don't necessarily want more energy because it makes you more of who you are. It feeds the system that's already in place. And if your system's kind of fucked up, it's going to get even more so, right? What I mean by this is negative emotions, your mommy daddy issues, your unconscious aspects, your shadows. These become strengthened by that sexual energy. We are not consciously working with these things. I see it all the time. I see it a lot. And it's I don't recommend men doing semen retention without having a strong energy cultivation practice, working with, clearing stuck chi from the body, having an outlet to rid that kind of heated energy of negative emotions. That's the most common thing for men on semen retention is the liver chi gets stuck, they get angry, they get irritable, energy stuck in their balls, they just get extremely horny and kind of over egotistical. So yeah, it will definitely plateau and you'll experience those things. That's kind of you can only get so far with it in that regard. You really want to focus on the alchemy of it, the transmutation of the energy circulating throughout the body. I mean, there was whole systems of cultivation based on this, right? Where semen, for a lot of people, semen retention is the end goal, but for really the sexual kung fu and the system of cultivation, semen retention is step one. Well, step one is really the foundational practice. Then semen retention. Then the real work begins of transforming that energy, because if it just stuck in your balls, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. It just makes you really horny and frustrated. And you have more energy overall, but again, you tend to become very rigid and stuck in certain outlets. So number one, channeling through the microcosmic orbit. There's also more advanced internal alchemy practices with it, but that's a good starting point. Too Sweet says, I'm 22 in very good form and I want to retain for a long time to go on a strong mindset. I think it's efficient rather than cycling weekly. Again, everything I just said, if you have a strong energetic practice, you're cultivating and refining the energy, circulating it, channeling it, you have things to put it into. It's great. Otherwise, you're probably going to run into issues somewhere down the road. And, yeah, this is why, again, there's a system around this. It's not just like you do semen retention, everything's fixed. You have to learn how to manage your energy. Michael Weld says, you are my hero. I'm teaching your teaching to my community. That's great. Spread the work. The world needs it. Okay, Krish Ivy says, how does that relate? Okay, I'm not sure what the context was. How did that relate? How does that relate to the feeling of constant bliss that we strive for? I'm not sure what that is. Sorry. The quiz says, are you completely sober or do you take psychedelics or other stuff sometimes? Completely sober. I get high on chi. I get high on life force. I get high on, running energy through my body, connecting with the elements of nature, connecting with the life force, bringing in some cosmic chi through my Dantian, my Ming Men, down from the universe in through the source portal. That's what gets me high now. Drugs just kind of burn up your energy the whole thing is that why it's interesting. I've thought about this a lot, whereas like when I was a kid, I felt pretty good all the time. I could use my mind and like play and whatever and have fun, and I was high that way, and then somewhere in the teenage years, I became very dissatisfied with my reality where I needed to kind of escape it with substances and drugs. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. No judgment. I definitely, I smoked weed every day for 2 or 3 years. But ultimately, I realized how when we're kids and our energy channels are just open and flowing, our imaginations are very strong. We don't care about what other people think about us. We're just completely in our own world, our own reality, creating, having fun, playing. So the more you can get back into this space, I think the more the whole thing is, I understand that psychedelics, the plant medicines, they can definitely be tools. They can be bridges to uh, seeing the world in new ways. I mean, I definitely had my whole, reality flipped around when I had psilocybin mushrooms at 19 years old, had this whole Kundalini awakening, completely changed the course of my life. So there's definitely, they can have they can accelerate your evolution, but you can also get stuck in them in that you rely on this external thing. Like, well, I need this to be spiritual. I need this to, I need to take ayahuasca every weekend. And then it's not really something that's coming from within you. It's coming from this external thing that you're relying on. It's a crutch. It's not really you. So when you can plug in into these states, into source energy, into the life force on your own through internal practices, that's the ultimate high. And that you can keep going 24/7, no side effects, no crash and burn, no up, down. That's kind of my trip now. Karim Tugberg says, thank you for sharing this wonderful information. I don't know if you already answered this question, but I hear something called flatline during semen retention. Is it real? What is your view on this? Yeah, I mean, there can definitely be something to this, in that when you start to rid these addictive behaviors, going on the internet and jerking off to porn for hours a day, because your dopamine system is so fried, your arousal chemistry, your whole brain chemistry is just, it absolutely messes you up. Jerking off to porn every day, going through porn video after porn video, totally hijacks your brain chemistry. And so when you release that excessive stimulation, it really is like coming off of a drug, and that you feel low. And there's a bit of a readjustment period to where your system kind of rebalances. And, it takes weeks or months, depending on, how severe it was for you. So that's kind of the flat line I think a lot of people talk about. But beyond that, when you've been doing this for years and you're still experiencing this kind of feeling of stagnance, it's probably it is stagnance. This is why I talk about, again, here's an interesting point let's make. This focus on this over obsession with semen retention as a stopping something. I need to stop ejaculating. I need to stop. I need to hold this energy, hold it in, hold it back, stop, stop, hold back. That's what you're programming your body to do. You become so obsessed with this holding back, this not ejaculating, that you're not allowing your energy to flow anymore. It does that. It stops, and your energy stops flowing. Your creative energy stops flowing. Sexual energy wants to move. It wants to express. It wants to dance. It wants to orgasm. It wants to pulsate. And when you're just completely denying yourself, any sexual pleasure, denying yourself the movement of sexual energy through internal skill as one outlet. This is the big thing with retaining, is you need to circulate that energy. This is what the practices are all about, sexual kung fu. That's what keeps it flowing. That's what keeps it moving. You channel that energy, move it through your body, circulate. You practice the internal alchemy, the meditation, moving the chi through your body, redirecting it. Then you're in the flow. So often flatline it's either recovering your burned out dopamine receptors, your depleted kidney energy, or it's your sexual energy stuck because you're not moving it, because you're so the focus, I recommend, moves from the keyword being stop, hold back. The intention, I think, instead should be recirculate, redistribute. It's not a stopping of anything. It's a redirection of the energy. You focus on, okay, where do I move this energy instead? Up the spine, up the glands, up the brain, through the organs, into my lover's body and back through mine, into my art, into my business, into the world around me, into my community, my relationships. You got to keep the energy flowing. Your intention, the chi goes where the mind flows. So when you're completely focused on stopping, that's what happens to your energy. Ultraviolet Art Gallery says, love what you do, bro. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. Thank you for sharing, for jumping on. Subliminal Vinyl says, how long is best to retain? It depends. Depends on how depleted you are. Depends on, there's a lot of factors, right? For some men, it would be good to go a few months without ejaculating. It kind of to really build up the energy, but for most men, that's not realistic. Whether through nocturnal emission or whatever, I would say, okay, bare minimum, at least a week at a time. I think for pretty much all men in this modern world, going at least a week between ejaculations. Twice a month is great. That's even better, and that's not a bad frequency for most men. Peng Zhu, Taoist sexual kung fu master, hundreds of years ago, supposedly lived to be like, some say like 300 years, some say like 700 years. But he said, if a man ejaculates no more than twice a month, he will live to a healthy, old age. So that's another kind of minimum, no more than twice a month. Once a month, I think, is a very sustainable and good amount for a lot of men who are well developed with the sexual kung fu practices. Personally, I don't recommend most men go more than about 6 weeks, for some men even a month, because your hormones actually your endocrine system starts to kind of shut down a bit as far as hormonal production when you don't ejaculate for that long. And I came to this conclusion through my own trial, my own and error, and also just studying with different teachers, reading the ancient texts about this. Kind of the conclusion, the consensus I arrived is that it's a balance between too much and trying to hold back forever. It's good to occasionally allow things to flow, allow the fluid to clear out so that the new is created, and that also re-stimulates the endocrine system. So, once a month ish, maybe twice a month, maybe once every couple months. You really have to experiment and find what works for you. You hit your sweet spot, because if you do ejaculate, you don't feel depleted. You don't really feel any different, and your energy's high. You're creative. You're flowing. And if it feels like that's not happening, if your libido's going down, if your hormones are going down, something's wrong. Either you're ejaculating too much or you're trying to go for way too long. It's a balance. It's a yin-yang dynamic. Okay, Krish IV says, how does constant bliss relate to prostate orgasm? Is it through the same methods? Well, prostate orgasm for a man creates incredibly, it can be a very powerful activation of your sexual orgasmic experience. It floods your body with this, it's kind of a Kundalini experience. It really opens you up and awakens you, like for days after, you're just kind of like glowing with this experience. I guess I don't know if that answers the question. ZNP Man says, hey boss, when do you see more results in terms of polarity after doing semen retention? 1 week or 1 month? In the beginning, when I started doing this back in 2013, it was closer to a month. And now I'm not entirely sure, because, I'm not kind of in the world I was in at that time. It's not really a concern of mine right now. I'm in a relationship. I'm in a committed relationship with a partner. We're in a long-term relationship. So as far as the polarity in our relationship, there's a number of factors to that. Ejaculation frequency can be one of them, but I'm not really out like trying to pick up women. So there's not that feedback of polarity. But I will say that just as far as how I feel, like, really feeling that, like when you start practicing semen retention, you really feel that buildup of energy. For someone, it's very uncomfortable. It's that like, I need to, it's often like a feeling of, I need to have sex. But when you kind of open up your body, you open up your system, it's more this like creative, just like high on life feeling, just this very, it's a good feeling. And I often get to that more around, if I have ejaculated, it's usually about within a week, right? Whereas where it used to take me a month. So here's another thing, I kind of in context to semen retention, this obsession with it. When you're in long-term cultivation, when you've really been practicing this stuff, and it's not just like, okay, you're practicing semen retention. When you're practicing, for me, it wasn't really about semen retention. I was learning Qigong, I was learning yoga, meditation. I was learning how to cultivate my energy. And just one aspect of that was the sexual aspect. Okay, well, how's the sexual energy tie into this? So it was an interest of mine as well. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to ejaculate. But I didn't really, focus too much on that at first until I, doing Qigong every day, opening up the energy channels. And I started to notice that when I was playing with the sexual kung fu techniques, drawing the sexual energy and not ejaculating it, but storing it in my body, I felt pretty good after doing that. I felt really charged up, and the orgasmic sensation of it was much more sustainable. And then I would ejaculate. I was like, oh, I feel like I've lost something. I guess I won't do that anymore. So I just naturally lost my desire to ejaculate. So it wasn't like I need to practice semen retention. It was just a natural growth of my practice, kind of a side effect, if you would. So that's kind of so what I'm recommending is, yes, semen retention is important. Regulating but it's only one way that you lose energy. There's so many other ways that okay, I practice semen retention, but I spend hours a day scrolling through social media. I'm eating garbage. I'm working way too much, stressing way too much, not getting enough sleep. Like, that's going to burn up your gene the same. So it's really looking at everything in your life and not over obsessing about one thing, because you tend to get stuck when you have this obsessive mindset with things, but just everything in balance and cultivate your energy. Oh yeah, what I was getting to is that when you're on a long-term path of this, when you've been doing these practices for years, eventually ejaculation doesn't actually really matter, because you learn how to draw the essence of that semen into your body and store it through the daily practice, that you're kind of spitting on an empty shell. So it's like, it becomes less about, oh, never did I ejaculate, did I not? And it's more just this constant flow of energy. You kind of transcend it in a way. Not that you should ever go back to ejaculating every day, but it's just, things just become a bit more effortless, sustainable, and less like feeling like you have to micromanage everything, if that makes sense. Okay, Subliminal Vinyl says, I read Western medical advice, the importance to ejaculate 4 to 5 times a month to reduce risk of prostate cancer. Thoughts? To ejaculate. Okay, yeah, here's the whole thing. People ask this all the time. And in fact, well, first of all, all right, I'm not going to rant on Western medicine, modern medicine, and how it lacks getting to the root of things and actually curing things. It's based on prescribing people drugs to numb their symptoms of deeper issues. But having said that, I think that these are very inconclusive. If you look at the studies, there's so many other factors that could have been part of it. They're very inconclusive. This is the whole thing with like the scientific tests. The whole thing is like, you can prove kind of anything you want if you with enough money, enough funding, and a certain outcome in mind. You can manipulate statistics enough to make any scientific study convincing. And this is what's been done to us in this day and age. Anyways, but I don't think that there's necessarily, I believe this is bullshit. Basically, they're like, you have to ejaculate. Well, let me say this. There could be a little bit to this, in that the whole thing about stagnance. If your energy gets really stuck in your genitals, it's not moving, it's not circulating. Yes, that can cause issues. And that's why the sexual kung fu techniques are all about keeping this energy moving, keeping the pelvic floor open, balanced, relaxed. I've been practicing semen retention. I've been going long periods without ejaculating for almost 10 years now. It's been a while. And I have not had any prostate issues. I've had some pain and discomfort from when maybe I wasn't circulating the energy enough. I was kind of neglecting my pelvic floor practices. Let me share this as well. I was at a retreat a couple weeks ago, and a friend of mine, fellow cultivator, he's 72 years old. He looks like when I met him, I thought he was in his 40s. Like, he does not look 72 years old. He's been practicing this stuff since he was in his 20s. He's been practicing sexual kung fu. He's been doing semen retention. He says he ejaculates once a month, or maybe not at all. That's his frequency. And his PSA, which is like your, kind of your prostate hormone levels, which can determine if there's going to be problems. It was a bit high, which, suggested there could be some issues, enlarged prostate. He had an enlarged prostate. And his doctor was like, "Oh, you're doing this semen retention thing. It's probably causing it." And he's like, "No, I don't think so." And so he did like fasting and some other stuff, and his PSA went back to normal. Prostate perfectly healthy. Dude's in his 70s. He's been practicing retention for 50 years. He's had occasional ejaculations. But yeah, so just and I've had a lot of other teachers similar. They're well in their old age. They've been doing semen retention, no prostate issues. So yeah, you know how to keep your body and mind healthy. You'll be fine. 50% of men have prostate issues. You need to learn how to take care of your prostate beyond just like, well, I'm ejaculating, had a Bud Light and an ejaculation, I'm good. Michael Perez says, any books you recommend on getting started with channeling sexual energy? Check out Taoist every time. Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy by Ma Tak Chi and Michael Wynn. It's a great kind of comprehensive view of the practice of sexual kung fu. Okay. ZNP Man says, what's the way to build up more polarization between the genders through sexual kung fu? That is really cultivating your sexual energy. For men, again, not ejaculating all the time, practicing semen retention, building up that semen is the essence of the body. It's the masculine essence. And when men are over ejaculating, their testosterone gets low, their polarization is lowered. They're just kind of neutral. They kind of lose that, vibrance of their energy field, that polarized masculine energy. So ejaculating less, practicing semen retention, and also practicing sexual kung fu, though. This is what I noticed when I was kind of I would say, noticing the most kind of magnetic effects, just other people's reaction to me was when I was not just doing semen retention, but also cultivating the sexual energy. I was engaging in sexual pleasure, sexual stimulation, and drawing it throughout my body, storing that charge in my body. You exude this juiced up, just this orgasmic energy where people are like, what is this guy doing? He's got something. Yeah, basically you cultivate your energy. You allow yourself to orgasm regularly, and not ejaculatory orgasm for men. It keeps you young, keeps you vibrant. Your energy is just expansive. So that will, build up a polarization. This is another problem in long-term relationships is when men are ejaculating frequently every time they have sex, they're, shooting their wad. It neutralizes that polarity. When you're just kind of dumping everything into your partner every time, it's just you have nothing left. And over time it can kind of build a bit of resentment, and that a common pattern for men is to kind of use their partner just as like a receptive vessel for their negativity, their tension, their stress, where sex is just stress relief. It's just, I need to get this out of me. It's a very unhealthy dynamic. And on some level they feel this and may start to just build up this resentment and this loss of polarity. And when men are becoming sexually depleted because they're over ejaculating, they may subconsciously build this resentment to their partner as well, feeling that they're kind of like taking the energy from them, even though it's them who's just recklessly sending it out. Zeke the Geek says, listening to you talk is so damn inspiring, but I think I need to find a friend like you to talk to on the daily to stay inspired. Anyone want to be accountability partners? Zeke the Geek needs an accountability partner. Yeah, it's good to meet, have friends who are on this path as well. Hey, come to the men's retreat next week, or it starts this Sunday. There's still a couple spaces open, kind of last minute, but hey, if you're up for it, we still got some spaces. Michael Towell says, will the women not get angry when you do not ejaculate? Depends on the woman. This is a good subject though, in that this can be a factor for sure in non-ejaculatory sex. It's kind of like anything. We're used to experiencing something in a certain way, and especially with sex, when the woman's like, "You're not ejaculating," like, okay, something's wrong. You must not be. You must not be, because in porn and just how we learn about sex, the ejaculatory orgasm for the man is so emphasized. Like that's what it's all about. It's all about that money shot, baby. That semen just shooting out of there all over the place. That's what it's all about. And so it's like if that's not happening, it's like, wow, how can he be fulfilled? He didn't have that pleasing ejaculation. So communication here is important. Um, Being able to say, hey, this is why I'm doing this. It's not, and don't make it like a really selfish thing. If it's like, I need to keep my energy because you're taking it all, like that's not going to be good. Say, hey, I have more energy for our relationship to connect together. And I also, can last a lot longer when I'm retaining my semen. I can have full body orgasms instead of ejaculating. So, we can have sex as long as we want and both experience tremendous pleasure. And then I don't need to like fall asleep and, roll over and cry afterwards. So there's that aspect of it. But also I think in some sense for the woman, it can be kind of the sign of like, here's, I received his semen. I received his love. It's like he really let go into me, and so they feel connected with. And I think often with the man, if there's a sense of withholding, like I think this is common. I did a video about this recently, but basically where men are practicing non-ejaculatory sex, when they're kind of in the learning stages, there's often just such a fear of ejaculating that they don't want to move too much. And they're so like in their head and in their, they're not fully connecting with their partner. They're not really actually letting the energy flow because they're so focused on stopping the energy. Here we come back into that stopping conversation, focusing on that. Whereas you learn to, you can actually you can send more energy to your partner without ejaculating because you can consciously bring that energy you both cultivated, bring it up to your heart center, mix it with your loving energy, send it back down through your sexual center into her body. Such a much deeper connection potential here. So, but it's not going to be for everyone. Zeke the Geek says, okay, yeah, I did address the Yoni question. Yeah, scent is it's a stimulant of attraction. Intuitive Sean says, you've trained with green dragon, white tigers, Taoist. No, I haven't. A lot of that, if it's the kind of system I'm thinking of, it's kind of weird. There's a lot of sexual vampirism in that. I'll just leave it at that. Like basically teaching people how to like suck someone's life force out, the vampiric types of practices, which isn't really about cultivation, balance, and exchange. It's about how do I take other people's energy. That's the dark side path. Worldwide. Okay, apparently there's a worldwide mass orgasm for world peace on August the 8th. Everybody, August 8th, be orgasming all over the place. World peace. I would use some protection though. There's definitely going to be some astral creatures trying to suck some of that up. The book I mentioned is Taoist Secrets of Love: Cultivating Male Sexual Energy by Montauk Chia and Michael Wynn co-wrote. David Almeida Paredes says, hey, Johnathan, what activities for a man do you think are the best to have a good balance between male and female energy? That's a good question. I would say basically very active outward activities and very inward receptive activities. So outward, the yang activities, martial arts, weightlifting, just strong physical exercise, hanging out with a group of men, competitive type stuff, sports, whatever. It's all very masculine. And then the yin activities, I would say meditation, uh, being in the water, taking a bath, or playing in the water, laying on the ground, just being, just literally laying on the grass under, I always say this, laying under, under a tree, just sinking into the earth, something really nice to do. But yeah, it's being able to be both receptive and active, outgoing, outward and inward flow of energy. I think in some, Tai Chi is amazing because it kind of teaches you both. It's both yin and yang. It's the whole thing is when the energy is yang, you've got to be yin to, not meet it head on and impact, right? And so you take that person's yang, redirect it with your yin, and then when they're backing off your yin, you're, the sticking where you're yang now, and Tai Chi's a phenomenal, fascinating art. Yannick Henry says, "Hi, Jonathan. Do you have a course or like a mastermind?" I do have a course. Um, I have a couple, some various things on my website, but the main course is my 12-week multi-orgasmic man course, which is a very comprehensive training in all of this. Zeke the Geek says, "I think the biggest resentment issue for me is if I don't feel like I can tell my partner everything. Holding back totally throws off my ability to touch in the same way and be close." Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be able to fully express yourself with someone. If you can't, then obviously there's, something at a deeper level, whether it's you're afraid of what they're going to think about you or something, you should be able to fully express yourself, in general, right? And to hold back, it creates this holding back and definitely can cause bigger issues in the long run, build up more resentment. Karim Tugberg says, "How do you deal with fetishes? Most of us have fetishes and it's hard to stay conscious around them. Do you have quick tips for correctly circulating this energy when encountering fetish objects?" Okay, so I mean, I think really what this question is just kind of this subject of the lustful, heavy sexual energy, which is really what this is tied to. Not saying it's right or it's wrong. It's just if you don't want to act out these things, it's just the basics of the sexual kung fu work is you recirculate the energy. It's usually just a sexual desire. It's all it is. It's simply lust. That's all it is. You don't need to tell a big story about it. It's just like, okay, it's a sexual desire that's a very specific outlet of it, right? You don't need to know it too much. Just, learn to recirculate through your body. Microcosmic orbit, number one, grounding, and also engaging in sex and a sexual pleasure in a conscious, harmonious, balanced way. You know, building up your energy, doing things in life that fulfill you, having creative outlets, all the usual. Keep yourself cultivated. Zeke the Geek, the men's retreat is in Asheville, North Carolina, where I am right now. In about a month or two. I'm not sure if I'm going to be having another retreat this year, possibly. I'll definitely let you guys know, though, when the next one will be. Benji says, "Much love from Kenya. Much love from the United States." Intuitive Sean says, "Could you name other CFUs you trained with other than Healing Tao and Slow Sex author Deanna Robinson? I want to understand depth." Okay. Systems I've trained in: Bruce Francis, Damo Mitchell, Scott Meredith, Lamb Kim Twins system. Just off the top of my head here, a lot of other people that aren't really big. My Tai Chi teacher's name's Jude Trepany. He's got some chi. He's got some skill. trying to think my teachers. I'm blanking right now on, this Marshall. Oh, I don't know if the Longman pi type system I was in is something I should. Anyways, very good experience. The Liquid Mind and Dragon Orbits, really good stuff. Excellent. Glad you've enjoyed it. Okay, L Jordan 369 says, any plant medicines you recommend for balancing hormones? I'm aware of ashwagandha and royal jelly already. Yeah, first of all, I should mention anything that is like directly affecting the hormonal system, like supplements, you don't want to take every single day. You want to cycle these things, otherwise it can kind of limit the body's ability to produce these on its own. But some very potent ones are pine pollen, lots of androgens. Tonkat Ali, a very potent testosterone booster for men. Tribulus. Just off the top of my head, those are some powerful ones. Derek says, have you learned the 108 Tai Chi set from Master Moy? No, I have not. Tonkat Ali, Tongkat Ali. Zeke the Geek says, what kind of results have the men taking your course had? I'm sure it's like really, really incredible, but it's hard to make these changes, right? Lots of amazing results. I mean, there's tons of testimonials on the, the site, on my course site, but usually it's, a much deeper connection to their sexual energy, more clarity, the tools to kind of stay grounded, balanced, energized, 24/7. A lot of guys who report going from lasting a few minutes to like, an hour or more. Learning to have non-ejaculatory orgasms, strengthen relationships. I got a message from a woman thanking me for the course because her partner went through it, and she said the sex, because he learned these practices, the sex was phenomenal. They both have like these amazing orgasms together and all this. So I see amazing, and I watched a lot of people change. Like I remember there was this one guy, it was a couple of years ago. I forget his name, but he's a really cool guy, older guy, and it was like, we have these calls. I was doing them every single week at the time. I do them every other week now. But anyways, throughout the calls, it was a 6-week course back then. And I remember by week 4 or 5, his face looked lighter. He looked happier and healthier. He had a smile on his face, which he didn't really before. He was like looking younger. So, people really change from doing this practice, doing this work. But the whole thing is you have to be consistent with it. It's not like, okay, I took the course, now and go back to my old self. You have to keep the practice going. And that's, sometimes I remember recently a guy reached out saying like, he went through the course, was following the practices. It was amazing. It was life-changing. And then, his life got busy. He stopped practicing and he kind of fell down a bit, and then got inspired to go back through the course again. And it was, much easier the second time to just get right back into the practice. So it's a daily practice. It's what it is. It's sustaining a daily practice. This is cultivation. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off now. Thanks everyone for joining. Good to see you guys. Good to connect. I have a busy few weeks coming up. I have a men's retreat next week. And then I'm traveling to Seattle to study with one of my teachers there, and visiting some family for a little while. So it'll probably be about 3 weeks before I do another live, but take care in the meantime. And yeah, much love, everyone.